신난다라는 말이야. 엉거려 히든 숨어 사비야. This will be my fuck America.
All right, welcome back to another edition of the Chasing Issues program, where we discuss culture, politics, current events with the editors and writers of the Chasing Issues web magazine. We're your host. I'm Greg.
And I'm Rob.
Today's highlights, we're going to be discussing the rioters or protesters, depending on whose side you're on, for the reaction to Trump's elections victory. And then we're going to be talking about Michael Moore and his vision of Trump. How's it going, Rob?
Boy, it's going well. Talk about American idiots. We just got a lineup, don't we?
We do. And it's nonstop.
TV. We've just been watching the TV, and oh man, I don't know how to label it. It'd be good to get some of them on here, as long as they don't just scream at us for 15 minutes. You know, an actual conversation.
Well, that would require logic, and I'm not sure some of them have the appropriate tools for logic.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's go over this American Idiot song real quick. Some of the lyrics on here. This is written, like 2004?
Yeah, back during Bush, and it was aimed at Bush.
From Green Day. Yeah, so let's see. Where everything isn't meant to be okay. Television dreams of tomorrow. They don't watch television anymore, pretty much. I guess we're all tuned in on the news a little bit. Or we're not, so we don't know anything, right? That's how it seems to be.
And they definitely don't know history.
Yeah, that's true. A book? What? So, you know, we're not the ones who are meant to be followed. For that's enough to argue. Definitely a lot of arguing going on.
Well, just look at the opening first four lines. You know, of course, there's always the phrase, I don't want to be an American idiot, don't want to be a nation under a new mania. I think there's a big new mania going on right now, hence all the protests and riots. There's a mania.
I think it might be called bipolar, don't you?
Well, should we break out some medication for them? I've got some
we got
my
an
fire
lot of
hose
that going on. What about that new law, right?
Sure. And the next line is, can you hear the sound of hysteria? Well, there again, the only sound of hysteria I hear are those from the left. And I don't know if you've been watching any of the videos on YouTube, and they're pretty hysterical.
There's a whole lot of crazy stuff going on right now.
Yeah. And it says, welcome to a new kind of tension all across the alien nation. So I guess they feel alienated. How the fuck do you think the rest of us feel for the last 8 years?
Or illegal alienated. I don't know.
Could be, but if they're illegal, they're breaking the law.
Get off my lawn.
They need to quit trespassing.
That's true.
So I think, you know, the one thing that this song that I'll agree with, it says that I'm not part of a redneck agenda. Well, no, because they're pretty much urban. And there again, like I've said before, elections are about urban versus rural. And so this whole song points out to middle America and Trump voters, even though it was written towards Bush. I kind of lump them into the same category today because this song seems to be slowly making its way back into the mainstream again, thanks to the protests and some of the current rhetoric that's going around. It is pointed towards Trump and middle America. You know, they're trying to get together. The Democrats are organizing with the protesters, and they're signing petitions on change.org. And there's over 2 million signers who support making changes and putting Hillary Clinton in as the president-elect. They don't understand how the Electoral College works, and they keep citing that she won the popular vote. Last time, and all the states' counts are not in, but last time I checked, she did, but she only won by 170,000 votes, and that may change. We'll see.
Yeah, and it says one nation controlled by the media.
Oh, that's never been more true than now.
Yeah, and I can what is it? What's that phrase? I can use my mic to control the nation or something like that. What was that phrase? What was that phrase he used from Flowbots?
Oh,
we're not the ones who's meant to follow, for that's enough to argue. Man, this stuff just never changes, does it? It's always the same. We're going through the same stuff. I don't know. It's really interesting times. And the news is seriously hurting for stuff to talk about right now. So since the election's over, and now they want to start bringing up things that were in the election. Go back to Fox News with Megyn Kelly and Donald Trump, and that's just old news. They're just hurting to bring stuff up.
There's nothing new, so they got to readjust.
Right.
They got to pivot back to an old non-controversy. And so your lyric was, I can lead a nation with a microphone, with a microphone, with a microphone. I think their version of leading the nation with a microphone is different than one that Trump or either Obama as well would lead the nation with a microphone. But either way, it still serves the same purpose. People are influenced by what you say or what I say, what Michael Moore says, or what the president says, or in this case, another band.
I mean, how does this sound? Like these people, everyone's thinking that it's more or less like one nation controlled by the media with liberty and injustice for all. It's like they're starting that's how people are starting to think now.
Well, it's not a matter. That's how they feel. And I think both sides feel that way. We need to find a way to come together and discuss how we can build those bridges and come to an acceptable term. The problem is, I don't believe that there's an acceptable term for either side on certain issues.
Do we have that many Band-Aids? I don't know. I'll have to go check my cabinet.
Yeah.
Maybe
we can import some.
Emergency. This is like an emergency. But, we were talking about this before. How do you deal with people like this? These people are going out in the streets and they're doing all this stuff all across the nation. Do you really go up there and say, words of encouragement, kindness, whatever? I mean, you basically can't let them get away with this kind of stuff. It's the conclusion that we came up with is just kind of ignore it. And later on, he's just going to have to come out and deal with it. But this whole immigration thing, which is what they're super angry about, I hope that Donald Trump puts together an immigration team way better than the Gang of Eight was. And now is his chance to get a serious think tank. And I'm talking bring out the super intelligent concepts and ideas. This isn't going to be deport everybody, and it's not going to be keep everybody, and it's not going to be amnesty. And we shouldn't even sit around and try and figure out how it's going to go. We just need like a bunch of really, really smart people go in that room for like 2 weeks in litigation or whatever, come out with the plan that we've never seen before. And he needs to do that everywhere. He has no special interests controlling him anymore. He gets to do everything by common sense and what is right for all sides. There's no one telling him what to do.
Sure. And who is he?
Donald Trump.
According to these people, he's not their president.
Right.
There again, it's nonstop, over and over and over again, chanting, going through the streets. And, they set buildings and some cars and stuff on fire and did a bunch of destruction last night. How do you deal with people like this?
I don't know.
You just ignore them like they have been the last 2 or 3 days?
I've said before you know it, the guns are going to start coming out and some people are going to get killed again. And it's just not worth it. They're not even giving the guy a chance. He comes out, he says this awesome acceptance speech, makes total sense and everything, and they can't even listen to it and say, hey, well, maybe he can't. Give him a chance. Give the business guy a chance. I will say this. I've talked to some of my liberal friends now about this, and they've said, let's just give him a chance. So it's not everybody.
No.
It's not like stereotypical everyone. It's not.
And I don't think it is on either side. I think there's a small percentage on both sides that likes to keep the pot stirred. And maybe it's just me, but I feel that there's more of those that like to stir the pot on the left side than there is on the right. It's a larger number of them.
I can imagine, even from President Obama's viewpoint, he sees Trump coming. He's thinking about this in the back of his mind. He's not a dummy. He's got a funny agenda, in our opinion, but he's not a dummy. I'm sure he's saying to himself, wow, this guy, he didn't take money from anybody. He doesn't have to do any favors for anyone. No, oh my gosh, the things that I could do if I was in that position. You see? I mean, it's pretty interesting.
And I think that's one of the things that the Democrats, as much as they talk about they want to redistribute the wealth and their hate of money, they always seem to just love money when it comes to, well, I've got this project and it needs, needs X number of dollars, and I've got this plan or this program, or, I need some funding, or I got to run for another election. It's really, really odd that as much as they seem to hate money, they have to have it, and they don't see that it's the lifeblood of anything that you want to do. Now, maybe that's it. Maybe they hate it so much because you have to have it. But why
know what
not
I'm gonna
embrace
do?
it? Do something with it. Embrace it.
You know what I'm going to do? All the little antics that I put in my office, the funny little signs, U.S. Marine Corps, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to get a big old money sign and plant that sucker somewhere. And I'm going to look up there every now and then and go, remember what it's all about? It's about the trade venue, and that happens to be money right now. Stop lying to yourself. There it is.
Yeah, and you mentioned, the money with the campaign cycle and everything. Hillary spent $1.3 billion, according to the Washington Post, as opposed to, take a guess at how much Trump spent.
Oh, 500,000.
Oh, no. No. It was $795 million.
Man. But, the B word is way bigger than the M word.
Oh, yeah. It's twice as much. And she, with the campaign staff, but the campaign itself had $556 million. Then, of course, there were party and joint funding committees that raised another $544 million. And then the super PACs themselves spent $188 million. The other hand, for Trump, the Trump campaign itself spent $248.3 million. The party and joint fundraising committees, $486.6 million, and then the super PACs were only $60 million. And that's funny because in the past, the Democrats have came out swinging and complained relentlessly, especially during the election between Bush and Al Gore, and then of course for the re-election Bush and John Kerry, about the super PACs. In fact, they were pushing for years about getting rid of the super PACs. And guess what? This year, 3 times as much did Hillary Clinton campaign spend on a super PAC. Well, excuse me. Federal regulation says they can't even be in contact with each other as a super PAC and the actual committee and campaign staff. It's separate. Those groups can pay and support her, but they can't have direct communication. But what I'm saying is that she had this overwhelming support, not only for numbers, for votes, but for dollars, and she still lost because the Electoral College, and then even in the popular vote, he still was only just a couple 100,000 votes behind her. So it's amazing what he's done. But like I wrote in an article on chasingissues.com, he came out front, had a command presence during the Republican primaries. And then from that point on, he played himself as the winner. And he never had to defend it or was never in second place. He was in the lead from the get-go. And it's all because of the tone he set from the very start. He got free media from his bombastic viewpoints and statements, but it got him in the limelight and got free airtime. And there was even one time where he was in an interview, and of course it was off the record, but it was still reported out that the interviewer asked him, did he intentionally make mistakes when he spoke or said things that were off color or a little bit controversial? Was it on purpose? Did he really, have a missed thought and think that something was a certain phrase or certain word or the numbers were wrong? Or was it intentional so that he would create the buzz behind it? Of course, the newspaper reporter was saying that, Trump said, yeah, I intentionally say things. And his defense in that was that if he says it wrong or he gets the numbers incorrect on purpose, now for the next week, everybody in the media is going to be talking about him. He's getting free publicity. Whereas if he'd have gotten it correct, it would have just been a sound blip and it would have went away the next day. This brilliant strategy. Kind of makes you look like a little bit of a buffoon for a short time, but the return on it is incredible.
Well, I wonder if the real deal is you just have to be truthful. You have to be very confident. You never let the confidence down. Look at what other people have done in the past. There's been certain people who have admitted things like Nixon. Oh, I'm sorry. I messed up. Yeah, I'm going to step down. Hillary, what happens? There's no, I'm sorry, I stepped down. There was, yeah, I goofed a little bit, but, I'm just going to keep running and everything. Trump never, he might apologize a little bit for something, but he continues to go. It was all about confidence and never giving up the ship. He probably feels that if he just keeps saying what he feels is right or what is right, he'll just prevail. And he knows more than us. Look what happened.
Well, sure. I think sometimes that confidence overcomes. I think that's what you're basically stating as well. You know, even if you're wrong, you know, so what? Yeah, I'm right most of the time, but in this case, I'm wrong. You still stay confident. You don't miss a beat. You keep on stepping, and that's it. I mean, people, it's just like they always say, a smile is contagious. Confidence can be contagious, and confidence builds. You can't ever let there be a crack in the dam, period.
And I wonder if the amount of effort had something to do with this. So if we were to gauge this, you could probably say 80% effort Trump, 20% effort Hillary, and he won by a landslide. So in some ways you could say, well, yeah, you deserve to win because, look, you did way more work than she did, and it did work out that way. I was very shocked he won, honestly.
I was very shocked that he won, but to be honest, I was extremely shocked at the amount of work, you know, to reference what you were just saying, that he put into the campaign. I did not expect that.
No.
I mean, I expected a show.
Anyone to work that hard.
And he certainly gave us the show. But he was campaigning, especially for one, throughout the entire time for the primaries, and then when he actually won the Republican primary, he was campaigning nonstop, you know, almost every day of the week. He had somewhere to be or something to do. He very seldom took breaks. But then the last 2 weeks of the election, he was giving 5 and 7 rallies a day for that 2-week stretch. Hillary, on the other hand, oh, man, she was lucky if she was given one every 3 days.
Yeah, that's true.
One. You're not going to win that way. So.
You and I were in a pretty heated discussion over this Michael Moore guy. You know, one of your favorites.
Not my favorite, but I have to respect. I have to respect him as a filmmaker, even if I disagree with what he's producing, and I disagree with his politics, because he's highlighting an area that needs to be highlighted. And to me, it's almost the same argument that Trump has been saying, is that, you know, our infrastructure is failing us, manufacturing jobs are leaving, etc. His solution in the way he presents, you know, visually the data and the problem is not necessarily what I believe in. And like I said, his solutions aren't what I agree with. You know, for someone that's making millions of dollars on the free market system, he certainly doesn't support it with his documentaries, but you know.
Yeah, I never liked the liberal agenda and what's really happening. You know, watch all this stuff and you can see where they're always going off in a certain direction. And what they say, a lot of times it sounds good, but they are like the party of ignore all consequences, because that's what we're always saying on our side, the conservative side, is, well, yeah, you got those 10 points that you made on the liberal side, but here's the consequences of giving the farm away. They tend to be very myopic and just looking at the moment and a single person. Well, we're always tending to look at the big picture. That's kind of the difference between the two. But
True.
You and I were really picking on Michael Moore because I was kind of noticing how he's got his agenda, but yet now he turns into this guy who starts saying that Donald Trump was going to win the election, and he said good things about him, sort of, I think. Like, Donald Trump, he's for the people, and he's saying what the automotive industry wants to hear, whether it's right or wrong, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I've got the sound clip if you want me to play it real quick.
Yeah, we need to hear a little bit of that again.
Okay, well, here we go.
Donald Trump came to the Detroit Economic Club and stood there in front of the Ford Motor executives and said, if you close these factories as you're planning to do in Detroit and build them in Mexico, I'm going to put a 35% tariff on those cars when you send them back, and nobody's going to buy them. It was an amazing thing to see. No politician, Republican or Democrat, had ever said anything like that to these executives. And it was music to the ears of people in Michigan and Ohio and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, the Brexit states. You live here in Ohio, you know what I'm talking about. Whether Trump means it or not is kind of irrelevant because he's saying the things to people who are hurting. And it's why every beaten down, nameless, forgotten working stiff who used to be part of what was called the middle class loves Trump. He is the human Molotov cocktail that they've been waiting for. The human hand grenade that they can legally throw into the system that stole their lives from them. And on November 8th, Election Day, although they've lost their jobs, although they've been foreclosed on by the bank, next came the divorce, and now the wife and kids are gone, the car's been repoed, they haven't had a real vacation in years, they're stuck with the shitty Obamacare bronze plan where you can't even get a fucking Percocet. They've essentially lost everything they had, except one thing. The one thing that doesn't cost them a cent and is guaranteed to them by the American Constitution, the right to vote. They might be penniless, they might be homeless, they might be fucked over and fucked up. It doesn't matter because it's equalized on that day. A millionaire has the same number of votes as the person without a job. One. And there's more of the former middle class than there are in the millionaire class. So on November 8th, the dispossessed will walk into the voting booth, be handed a ballot, close the curtain, and take that lever, or felt pen or touchscreen, and put a big fucking X in the box by the name of the man who has threatened to upend and overturn the very system that has ruined their lives. Donald J. Trump. They see that the elites who ruined their lives hate Trump. Corporate America hates Trump. Wall Street hates Trump. The career politicians hate Trump. The media hates Trump after they loved him and created him and now hate him. Thank you, media. The enemy of my enemy is who I'm voting for on November 8th. Yes, on November 8th, you, Joe Blow, Steve Blow, Bob Blow, Billy Bob Blow, all the blows get to go and blow up the whole goddamn system because it's your right. Trump's election is going to be the biggest fuck you ever recorded in human history. And it will feel good.
Hallelujah, brother. He finally said something worthwhile.
Think about that. We'll come back from our commercial break. Are you looking for a web host for your blog or website? The startup plan at Siteground.com gives you all the essential hosting features you need to accommodate a just getting started website or an existing average-sized blog, personal or business website. www.siteground.com, web hosting crafted for superior experience. The music on this podcast is brought to you by Bensound.com, where you can download royalty-free music at no charge. You can use this music in YouTube, a podcast, or any other multimedia project. Bensound can be found at bensound.com. Once again, that's BENSOUND.com. Royalty-free music by Bensound. All right, thank you for joining us on the Chasing Issues program. So what do you think? You agree with Michael Moore?
Well, what we said earlier was he says all that stuff that sounds kind of really good and promising and for Donald Trump, but then in the end he's going to flip-flop back to his original self. He's just kind of singing to the tune of America. I haven't been listening to him after that, so I don't really know where he's going with it. But I'm sure he's just following the money, like we've been saying.
Well,
That's his real motive.
he was on Meet the Press, and with Chuck Todd, and actually with Glenn Beck as well. And so he clarified his statements basically. And what he wanted to point out was the fact that he lived in the Midwest, what's known as the Rust Belt, the upper Midwest, which is Minnesota, Chicago area, Detroit, Michigan, where there used to be a lot of manufacturing jobs for the automotive industry, etc. And now all of those people to whom he's addressing and talking about when he gave his little speech there on his new show, TrumpLand, he said that he understands why a lot of people are angry. Okay? And he even references that Donald Trump is their human Molotov cocktail, that when they go into the voting booth, they are going to throw everything they have at the system, the political system, because they feel like their lives were made miserable by that system. Now, as you're contending, he's basically endorsing Trump. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like in a way.
But what he clarified on the Meet the Press was that that's the exact opposite. Molotov cocktails are never thrown with good intentions. They're so destructive. And he's blaming not only the Clinton campaign, but the Democrats as a whole. So he's trying to put the blame where he feels that it is, because the Democrats haven't done what they said they were going to do. They haven't done enough to protect the people, and that's to that they always seem to pander to. The Democrats always want to come out and say that they are the party of the blue-collar worker, but they've not taken care of the blue-collar worker over the years.
They just reel them in and then let them go.
And that's
what they
true.
do.
And so I think that's the one thing that Trump has going for him, is that he's able to reach across all three social economic levels. The lower income class, the middle income class, and the upper income class. He offers a vision for all three of those. And there again, I don't think Michael Moore is saying that he agrees with Trump's vision, but it's a disruption into the system. And in the business world, disruption always leads to innovation and usually is very profitable. It's a good thing. But there again, Michael Moore's not a businessman, is he?
Oh, I beg to differ with that one. This guy's a brilliant businessman.
I agree with you. I think he is.
I sit there and watch some of his films. A lot of my conservative friends, I won't watch that. You got to know your enemy. You have to study your enemy. There's nothing wrong with that. And I got to say, I've watched quite a few of his films, and I'm kind of sitting there intrigued, sort of laughing every now and then, bravo. But in the end, it's always about those consequences that they don't want to talk about. They just want to talk about it like it's fantasy land, and don't go back to reality. Don't go back. Let's not go back to Kansas. Let's stay here in Oz. That's where we want to be. That's how I see him.
Well, and I'll agree with you. I think he is a businessman, and he's a smart one, because even though he had this show, TrumpLand, I think it's on HBO, maybe it's Showtime. I don't really remember where it's at, but I think now he's going to have probably a strong show for at least the next 4 years. This is nothing more than a pivot for him. He was smart enough to see the winds of change coming and come out and make this statement for, I think it was the second episode of the show. And now he can run this show because Trump's won for the next 4 years, and he's going to make cha-ching, cha-ching, bank all the way.
So you think he called up Howard Stern too? What do you think?
Yeah. Well,
how
it's the same tactics.
Trump must have called Howard after he won. Dude, I did it.
Yeah.
We were right. I did it.
Well, you do know that Trump has been on Mike Savage's show quite a bit.
Oh yeah, I've been hearing him. Yep.
Interesting. For one, he's called in the past just to, even before he announced that he was going to run, and just kind of offered some commentary. But then once he did run, he was on the show a couple of times. Then he called in again the other day after he won. So we laugh and make jokes that Trump followed the Howard Stern aggressive tactics, but I think that it worked, and it certainly has worked in the media in general, all the way, for everybody that's there, whether you're Michael Moore, Michael Savage, Howard Stern. It's an effective strategy.
So we've been talking about basically the role of the alpha and the beta male, And look at how many alpha males we've probably seen in leadership these days. I bet you Michael Moore is one, and Trump is definitely one. I bet you Howard Stern is one. Outspoken alpha male. What do you think about that?
Well, I think you're right. I think Michael Moore is playing to the image that he is not an alpha, that he's a beta. And he's really kind of an introvert, but he's got to get out there and he's got to let it be known. But I've seen him, and he's pretty confrontational. And to have done some of the documentaries that he's done, you'd have to kind of get up in someone's face. So I don't know, maybe he's a mix between the two. He can control and kind of drift back and forth. He's kind of hard one to nail down. But I do believe that there is a streak for it. I don't think anybody's going to be that successful. I mean, sure, you have to be empathetic. And there's a lot of misconception that a true alpha is not emotional, because that can get in the way of the data and the smart decisions and the logic and the reasoning. And for the most part, I'll agree with that. However, I think if you as an alpha can learn to moderate your emotions and control them, but also to read into others' emotions and use those emotions in the right way, you're much more effective than just a true alpha. And I think that's what Trump has been able to do, and I think that's what Michael Moore has probably done. But
I know that a lot of people can be what's known as an ambiovert. You ever heard that term before?
No.
So an extrovert would be where you're very alpha, and an introvert would be where you're beta, but an ambiovert can be where you are basically playing on both.
Well,
So the military can do that to people. So let's say you're in the Marine Corps and you portray yourselves as an introvert. The leaders can see that you're an introvert. Well, they're going to force you to become an extrovert at times, because you have to lead a large group of people. So they're going to force you to get out there. Some higher rank's going to tell you that. And nobody, I don't think, can truly turn you into what you're not, but you can become practiced. And over years, you can turn it on and off. So some people you can see them portraying their extrovert principles, and then, what are you going to do this weekend on our time off? Oh, I'm going to go in my room and do nothing all weekend, because they're going to go back to their introvert status that they really like.
sure.
That's probably the most effective way to be right there.
Or even on the other hand, with someone like Trump, who's just a natural extrovert, he has to kind of tone it back a little bit and kind of maybe capture some emotional guidance or crutch.
I wouldn't be surprised if his wife is maybe an introvert somewhat, and he'd be the extrovert, and then they would meet together, and if they could compromise, that makes an okay relationship right there.
Sure. And, if he's smart, he probably has people like that on his staff as well.
So what about when Trump went to the White House yesterday and that whole thing went down? Remember that?
Well, I do. And I wrote an article on chasingissues.com that discusses that and has a couple of photos. So what happened was, it's always been tradition for decades now that the incoming president will drive up to the front of the White House, and the outgoing president and his family will come outside and greet the incoming president and his family. And there'll be a nice photo op, and it'll last, 20, 30 minutes or so. That way everybody gets enough sound footage, get enough video footage, and they get enough photos, right? Sounds great. It's part of the transition.
Nice, friendly conversation, right?
Well, yeah. How do you think that went yesterday?
Oh, man. I wish I was a fly on the wall, don't you?
I do, too. And so for those that are listening that don't know what happened, at the very last minute, President Obama canceled the upfront meet and greet and had Trump and his entourage come through the side entrance to the back. In fact, the press was never alerted. During the live feed, they kept apologizing because they were expecting Trump to show up, and he never did. And when they found out that he had made it through to the back, they apologized for not getting that photo op, still not knowing that it had been canceled. And it wasn't until a little bit later that they found out, and they were not happy. So
I think if I was Trump, as I was going up there, I'd sort of be giggling to myself, and I'd be kind of humming to myself, slip out the back, Jack. Don't be coy, Roy.
and there again,
look at this guy, what he's doing to me. To say.
Well, I think
I would have been humming it as I'm talking to Obama. What are you humming? Oh, I don't know. You think about it for a while.
Sure, get a little upper hand, a little uppercut. So,
and just make sure that the cameras are rolling the whole time so I can't say anything wrong.
But, talk about tactics from Trump. I wouldn't be surprised if the cameras and the video were around that he's not humming it loud enough on purpose so that he can further get a jab at him, if one of the press asks him about it. Because that's kind of the tactics that Trump uses a little bit. He really gets under people's skin easily, and I think that's what part of this was. Obama did not want to give him the opportunity or the pleasure of getting that photo op. And so he had him come in the side or, through the back. And I've been there to the side entrance, that comes up to the back before. And I don't know how the press missed it. I mean, if they're set up directly in front, you really can't see it off to the right-hand side. It's the eastern, if you're facing the White House, it's facing east, and the rear entrance is coming off the south entrance. So it's pretty interesting.
You could have had some funny-looking drones flying around in the courthouse or a courtyard, or people jumping over the fence with Bowie knives.
I think it's Lafayette Square. That's right across the street. That may be where they've been set up. But so going back to that, to me, we'll talk about alpha's behavior and beta behavior. I think by Obama doing that, that's complete beta behavior. That's a submissive behavior. If he were truly an alpha-driven behavior, he would have gone out there and confronted him, even in a nice way, had the photo op, played it to his hand, but instead he's going to take this behavior. And it only got worse. And for the listeners that out there, in case they didn't know, President Obama and President-elect Trump do not like each other and haven't for a long time. Trump even offered a $3 million reward for President Obama to produce his birth certificate and prove that he is an American citizen there for a while.
The birther.
Yeah, he was a birther. Right after the Hillary camp started that rumor back in, was it 2012? Can
you just see Obama in the back, saying, "Hey, please don't cancel out everything I did."
Well, and that's it. Trump has come out saying he's going to destroy his legacy.
But, okay.
Talk about a Molotov cocktail, right?
Yeah, he's like an American IED.
Yeah.
Improvised explosive device on a lawn.
So
well, I think that he's going to be smarter than that. And he's already said he's starting to bring in the incumbents, and he's starting to bring in the people who've been there, and liberals and Democrats alike. He's going to be asking them all for advice and whatnot so he can make the best decisions. That's what I see, and I actually hope to see that. He reins them all in like they're all his sheep, and he takes their advice, and he's going to do the right thing. Well,
a good leader should do that. You just don't throw out people, no matter how incompetent or competent they are, just because you don't believe in each other on an ideological standpoint. It's never good to surround yourself with nothing but yes people. You need to have someone challenge you and question you on occasion. You might be overlooking something that they bring up. And so you've got to
give you your troops, and you got to keep them. These are my troops.
Yeah. And so there again, even when they did the photo op with the press, President-elect Donald Trump sat on the right-hand side of Obama, and that made an awkward situation because then Obama would have to turn, and instead of, he could have offered his hand by turning to his right and offering it straight up and down, but he didn't. And I was wondering if maybe this was just a one-time thing. So I started looking at other handshakes that Obama has done in other photo ops with other leaders. Like he did a photo op with a couple of people from the Middle East and from Japan, and it was an even straight up, even handshake. But then when he did it with Putin, it was the same as he did just now with Donald Trump. He offered his hand, but with it slightly with the palm up and open, which is a submissive handshake. And Donald Trump obviously came in over the top and took the upper roll, just like they did at the White House yesterday in the handshake. And definitely, that is an alpha move. And President Obama's was, like I said, the submissive beta move, which plays right into what I said with why he canceled and didn't go out for the photo op.
That is such an interesting observation.
But it was like I was saying there's a lot of things, even with Trump. I got to look at some of his handshakes. With Trump, when he was handshaking with Romney a little while ago, he even took it one more step further. Not only in the photo, and I can post this on chasingissues.com to follow this conversation up with, is not only did he follow that with being on the top when he was shaking hands with Romney, but he also grabbed him by his arm and shoulder, and he pulled him in towards him. That is another power move. That's a power dynamic of who's controlling, either the conversation or whatever's happening at that moment. So he's dominant.
That's funny. Romney is no dummy. He knew exactly what was going on there.
Yeah. And it's really hard. I mean, there are little things that you could do to kind of change that, but it's really hard when someone's really being forceful and aggressive about it. They're establishing their dominance. And so to me, in our last podcast, I was trying to make the point that by him calling up Reince Priebus when Trump was giving his victory speech, he was trying to make the point, not necessarily directly towards Reince, but towards the Republican National Committee as a whole and the Republican Party as a whole, that I'm not yours, you're mine. It's the other way around. He was establishing dominance in that victory speech by calling Reince up.
Yeah, and it looks like Reince might have some sort of a cabinet position, it seems.
Yep.
As well as a lot of the other people that we've seen. Christie, I'd really like to see Giuliani, as like an attorney. That guy.
Well, Attorney General, and then that's the rumor.
Wow.
That's the rumor that he might select him.
Ben Carson, I'm not sure. Maybe.
The thing that I'm
something
concerned with that you brought up was that you didn't feel like during his victory speech that he called out Kellyanne Conway, his campaign manager, enough and thank her enough. And while I was initially defensive of him because he did call her out and say thank you, going back and reflecting on it, I think you're right. I think he probably should have made a little bit more of a concerted effort. And in fact, now, this is what I find strange. When he went to meet with President Obama and talk about the transition, he brought in his son-in-law, which is married to Ivanka, who used to be a hedge fund manager. And that's, what is this with these candidates with having son-in-laws that are hedge fund managers? Because Chelsea Clinton, Hillary's daughter, is also married to a hedge fund guy too. So anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked. So
I think everybody should have a dollar sign in their room. I mean, that's what this is all about. It's
I thought maybe there for a minute everybody should have someone in their family married to a hedge fund manager.
We sing about money, we spend money, we collect money, and money. It's all about the money. Well, come on.
Well,
no, I was saying that woman should have been put on a pedestal because
I agree.
Oh my gosh! I mean, and she was always in the limelight, always on the news. But the thing is, she had that position of where if he won, she's going to look like a rock star.
Oh, brilliant!
If he lost, she's going to look just go away.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
foolish. Her career would have been over.
But if you can win, there's a huge reward for you, girl.
Yeah.
Here you go.
And I'll agree with that.
Rock.
And she's the first woman to successfully manage a presidential campaign. So that's record-breaking right there. That's making history. But, what I was saying was that Donald Trump took his son-in-law to meet President Obama yesterday, right? And the rumor has it is that the reason why he had him there is he's using him currently in the chief of staff position. And I was wondering, and this is something that I've talked to a couple of people about, you would think he would have Kellyanne Conway, his campaign manager, to continue on managing things in that chief of staff role, but I don't know where her place is going to be within a Trump administration. It's got to be somewhere key and pivotal. He's got to reward. He's got to reward all these people. You mentioned Rudy Giuliani and how you like to see him as the Attorney General, and Ben Carson, et cetera. Chris Christie, all of these people that have, that jumped over onto the Trump train and gave him support. He's got to reward them and pay those favors back, because if he doesn't, he's not going to have any political, capital. He talks about rewarding loyalty. He's going to have to show loyalty and return those favors. Otherwise, everybody from here on out for the next 4 years are going to look at him and say, I'm not doing anything for him. He's not returning favors.
And Newt Gingrich, man, that guy has so much value with his words. He's like a wordsmith. He knows what he's talking about. That guy, I think he's invaluable, just like Giuliani is somehow. And she could be a great PR person for him. It's like, no matter what comes up, she's on his side. She's loyal. She knows what she's talking about. Invaluable.
Well,
all those three.
That was my contention is that he's probably going to put her maybe as his press secretary, and that's
Yeah.
pretty prestigious. But I don't believe that that's her background. Maybe it is. I'll have to look into it a little bit more.
They talked about doing that for her. I can't even see somebody dinging her. I can see her coming back with the answers that need to come out probably every time.
Yeah. Now, if she chooses not to stay with a Trump administration, she will be, like you said, a rock star, and she can offer her services in a consultancy, fashion for a long time.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, it's probably way more profitable for her to do that than it would be to work in an administration. It's just working in the administration would be icing on the cake for later in life. She could write a book and she can give speeches, and that's where the money's at too.
That's true.
Can you
Very
imagine the commanding salary that she could have giving speeches?
Oh, how many people are doing that, right?
Yeah, right. It's not profitable. I mean, Hillary and Bill Clinton have only made millions off of that.
That's what we need to do, man. We need to scam some people and thinking that we can make a speech. Oh, it's only $500,000 each time we talk.
Oh,
Thanks.
$500,000. I don't know that I'll ever be able to command that, but I'd certainly give a speech. And if anybody's listening to the program and would like either Rob or myself, feel free to email me at greg@chasingissues.com. We would love to give a speech, and we'll discuss rates at that time.
Yeah. Marines. We're going to get more Marines on here. We're going to show you guys how smart Marines are. Matter of fact, happy birthday, United States Marine Corps, yesterday.
That's right. Happy birthday, Semper Fi.
241 years of constant success, and we'll just leave it at that. I don't want to brag too much, but they are awesome.
They are.
And later on, we can start talking about just how complex and how difficult and technological the military is. We know Marines. I know a lot of the other services. I go and help and work in this area. Everybody has stuff to offer. If you ever want to join the military, you ask us. We'll tell you. I mean, we worked in some technical fields. Some dummies can't be there. I'll say that much. If you're dumb, go somewhere else. I don't know. Not the military. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, there's always a place for everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, a good leader will take account of his people and put them in the right roles. So
Very true.
But it is a changing military. It's definitely not our father's military. You're right. They do want. It is a smarter, more agile military than what it used to be. It's doable if you're not that intelligent, but it's doable. That's about it. That's the extent of it.
Yeah, when you show up and they want you to give PowerPoint presentations and run access databases and all this stuff, planning, preparing, it's not that simple like people think at all.
No.
Good transition out to the civilian world too. They teach you an awful lot of stuff.
Yeah, you definitely leave the military and go into civilian life with a much broader background than you would if you just went straight to college and then out into the civilian world to work.
Yeah, good point. So Semper Fi, Marines.
Semper Fi.
Well, I think we could close it up, man. I think we're about good, huh, for this time.
We're not going to complain about the rioters and protesters a little bit more again?
Oh, man, we're going to complain about those rioters for what, the next week?
At least. Yeah, I tell you, I would love to have one of them come on and give us their actual formal complaint of why they're doing what they're doing. And I'd like to hear a little bit more from them. I listen to them, but all they say is, not my president. Not my president,
Right. Right.
Okay, so what is your answer here? That doesn't tell us anything.
Yep, no substance.
Yep. And with that, I think you're right. I think we're going to close this episode out. Man, you got to love that. That's sweet, sweet music, right?
I'll never really understand the protesting mindset, but that's just me. I don't know. I'd rather somehow talk about things, or I don't know. Anyway, everyone else likes it, so I guess there's something to it.
Well, must be. It's like a club. They're all out there having a good time, right?
There you go, Club Med, right? Oh, one more thing. What about this California wanting to secede from the union?
Oh, the Calexit.
That's where I'm from, and I will definitely say all the other states help this state survive. I mean, it's in so many ways. They need to get a clue, and I'm calling for soon-to-be President Trump to help California, I guess from the federal side, because this voting thing where I don't have a voice, Donald, that needs to change. It's not fair.
Yeah.
I said it.
I agree. Maybe we'll have another podcast just on the Collexit.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you for joining us for another issue of the Chasing Issues program. If you like our program, please check us out. ChasingIssues.com for more stories. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, or just simply share us the next time you have a conversation. Rob, until next time.
Peace out.
Have a good one.